This is Comic Geek Speak episode 1601, Previews.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes, this is...
I'm Brian Chrisman.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Chris Everly.
Comic Geek Speak.
And welcome to the show. It's time once again for our look through the previews catalog.
Happy day.
Yes, this is the April 2016 previews catalog for items in shops, mostly starting in June of 2016. This physical previews catalog, however, does not have the DC solicits in it.
Indeed.
Because of the rebirth announcement. So actually there is a separate download available for that online, as you know, through DCBS. So, and we also did sort of go through that a little bit in our last episode, but we'll go through that again in this episode.
Yep, we do have a little more detail to talk about now.
Certainly. Couple quick things. In the last episode, 1600, I mentioned that I should have done the research and found what the actual number episodes we've done. You include all the spin-offs and specials and things. Well, I've done it now, so this episode 1601, if you add it together, is actually episode 1891. As I said, closer to 19 than 1600. So
It's like renumbering on a comic book cover.
yeah.
How about
So when we get to 2000, and we may renumber it then. Who knows?
Relaunch with a new zero-issue number one and a whole bunch of numbered specials.
That's correct.
And this is not including the Mohatmu.
This is not including the Mohatmus.
That's good. They really shouldn't be included.
No, it should not.
But even without that inflating the number, it's 1890 still, or 91 is still a pretty
That's correct.
high mark.
Excellent. All right, so as always, with our previews episodes, this episode is brought to you by Discount Comic Book Service. Go to dcbservice.com for all your pre-ordering needs. And as always, when you pre-order from them, any DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, or Image title is right away 40% off the cover price. Most of your other titles, independent books, whatever, are between 20 and 35% off. They do have some specials where they will have books sometimes 50% off, 60, even 75% off. They also will put together bundles of several comics at a deep discount, which I will go through as we hit them, because this is a wonder, because they're updated as we record this, updated site. I almost placed my order, not quite yet, but I want to hear what you guys would think if I've missed anything. But there are some great deals going on. And as usual, they have the all-new DC and Marvel. Trades and hardcovers are half off cover price. You can get your book shipped weekly, twice monthly. Monthly, you can add bags and boards. We've used them for many years. They're wonderful people. Discount Comic Book Service, dcbservice.com. And boy, do I have some deals to talk about when we get going here.
Oh, yes. And as one of the many public services they offer their customers, if you want to get access to that download of the DC previews that Pants mentioned a few minutes ago, there is a link on the dcbservice.com site to it. It's 329 megabytes, so it's not a light download, but it will help you to finish placing your order for this month.
Excellent. So like I said, pay attention, because I'm going to hit some really great deals when we get to them there. All right.
Nancy, no one shills better than you.
Anything else before we get started, gentlemen?
How we all doing?
I'm doing fine. Actually, well, yeah, sure, briefly. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned it on the air, actually, that I miss going out to dinners. I used to go out with my mom all the time, and so it's weird for me to go out by myself to dinner, so I'm trying to start a tradition with the guys here, and so Matt, Shane, Murder and myself went out to a very nice dinner this past Friday night.
Oh, yes, in the medieval-themed Knights Pub of the similarly medieval-themed Stokesay Castle restaurant and, what else to call it, reception center.
Sure.
It's rented out for private parties and wedding receptions and such. And so this is the more informal side of it, which is done up like a bar or a pub. And they have a pub-style menu with various burgers and some British pub-style, gastropub-style dishes, bangers and mash and shepherd's pie and things like that. And it was just the four of us sitting there in a window table and talking about this and that, eating various things.
We almost had a Kevin Moyer sighting.
This close.
He was invited, and he just backed out at the last minute. But yeah,
Well,
there's
these
a
are
lot.
the moments where I wish I resided in Pennsylvania so I could have joined you. John.
Yes, I know. We'll get together. There actually is an upcoming. I just found out today an upcoming another CGS Wild Pig retreat, an undisclosed location coming up in June.
Oh, right. The FB invite came through just today.
Yes.
And not to mention my offer to come to my house for the Civil War weekend as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, which we may yet take you up on, Chris.
I hope so, brother. I hope so.
So that was a very fun evening. Glad we all got to do that in the area here. I'd like to see you guys.
Vance,
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you, by the way, for an original art acquisition. Remember you referenced that Black Panther Iron Fist page from the Priest era on Comic Link.
Yes.
I did win that page.
Sweet. All right.
It did cost a bit of a pretty penny,
Uh-huh.
but considering what's on that page, it is well worth it. And I want to thank you again for recommending that. I look forward to getting that nicely framed and put up in the shop when I receive it.
Yes, I am an enabler when it comes to original art. And that's a nice little segue about original art. Also this past weekend, I was in Secaucus, New Jersey for the Comic Art Con. They have it, usually have it twice a year in Secaucus at one of the hotels. And it's just a room full of original art dealers from around the country, just all about original art. Had about a dozen big name dealers: Albert Moy, Mike Berkey, some Bashar, had some really big art dealers, and some really amazing art. I mean, completely out of my price range for the most part, but saw some amazing works. There was pretty much at least one piece from every dealer I thought, that's the piece I would get, and I didn't get any of them, but I did come across, completely by accident, one page from, I think it was DC 1 Million 80-page giant. I have no idea who the artist is on it, but it literally called out to me. And thank you. It was just a page that had as one of the sound effects the word pants.
Exclamation
Exclamation
So
point.
he's not misusing the word literally when he says that it literally called out to him.
I looked at it and I couldn't believe it. I said, back when you actually had, word balloons and sound effects on the original art as opposed to how it is now with all that digital stuff, I said, oh my God, it was only $100. Actually, in the lower panel of Batman and Superman from the DC 1 Million, I said, holy cow, I have to have it. So I got it. And Murd said very eloquently, oh, no, I'm now an onomatopoeia.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that
Vance,
was,
now at a show like that,
yes.
is there art that is, quote, affordable for, say, in the low hundreds, or is everything just in the thousands? And
Oh, no. There's certainly pages very affordable in the hundreds of dollars. You just have to, sort of look for it there. There's a lot of deals to be had in that respect. But if you're looking for the top of the line stuff, yikes a hootie. I mean, we'll talk after I don't want to disclose some stuff. But yeah, some really nice things. All right.
Let's dive in.
Dive into previews. So let's start, as I guess we usually do here at the beginning, with Dark Horse.
And Dark Horse seems to have some special celebratory doings happening, too.
Yes.
Because this is apparently the 30th anniversary of the company.
Yeah, it's on the cover of previews. June 4th, 2016 is Dark Horse Day,
Wonderful.
celebrating 30 years.
It's a company I've always admired for just the sheer breadth and diversity of the titles they've offered over the years, all the wonderful license properties they've produced.
Oh, yes.
Great company. Is there anything in Dark Horse anybody particularly wants to speak on? Any specific titles? Or
Oh, a few things, I'm sure.
please, my friend, please.
Well, let's see. On page 50, I'm not that big a fan of the Ridleyverse, as it were, myself, but I noticed that there's the first issue of a 4-issue Prometheus tie-in miniseries, which is written by Dan Abnett, a science fiction scribe of some pedigree in comics, with art by Andrea Muti. So
we worked on Rebels, actually.
yes, that's right. I knew that name from someplace. And so now he's going from Revolutionary War period North America to, deep space. So if you were a fan of that particular movie, now here's a 4-issue miniseries written by a very skilled writer, that continuing and expanding that particular mythos.
And the first issue is half off cover price, $1.99.
Ba-boom.
What else? What else, Murd?
Let's see if you're in the mood for some gothic horror. Page 57, we've got a trade paperback entitled "Children of Lovecraft." I believe it's a collection of prose stories. But it's written by various creators with a Mike Mignola cover. See, another one of the DCBS bargains available this month is on page 58. Fred Van Lente writes a 5-issue miniseries entitled Weird Detective, which appears to be a PI going up against strange, possibly supernatural / demonic goings-on in New York City. And that might too have a Lovecraftian bent, because the cover image shows a silhouette of, what looks like the detective casts a tentacular shadow. He looks a little bit like one of the elder gods. So draw your own conclusions from that. But another conclusion you can draw is that because Fred Van Lente is writing it, it will be a good read.
Guys, I have to depart. I'll be right back. Just keep going. I'll be right back.
Not at all, Chris.
And that is half off the cover price, only $1.99. Mm-hmm. Now, I see on page 64 where they have He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a complete guide to the classic animated adventures hardcover. Now, were you into the animated stuff as well as the toys, or was it a combination of both?
It was a combination of both. Okay. A very close combination of both.
That's what I figured, because one goes out hand in hand, pretty much.
They suckered me in perfectly there. I was exactly. Yeah, mission accomplished with this young consumer, as far as cross-promoting the toys with the show and vice versa. But yeah, I had a box full of He-Man action figures. I would watch the show, and as each character appeared, I would dig out his or her action figure and set it up on the floor in front of me. Just like my own little plastic dramatis personae. And so I'm sure Chris would have asked me if I were going to go for this, because this is the third, I think, coffee table book based on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe that Dark Horse has put out in the last year or two. And I think it may be the first one that I won't be able to resist, because it deals directly. It's not just an art book or something.
Right.
It's synopses of the show. It's behind-the-scenes information and some storyboard images. There's a review even, like a qualitative review of each episode by the author, one James Eatock. That's going to be a trip down memory lane. I'm going to see how many of these episodes I can actually remember just by reading the plot synopses. It's 592 pages, so it covers the entire series, plus She-Ra, Princess of Power, its spin-off, which I've also enjoyed as a kid. The whole thing is $39.99.
And DCBS has it for 40% off the cover price, $23.99.
Bless you, DCBS. Ooh, here's another nice collection of material here on page 71. The Dark Horse Comics / DC Superman trade paperback, collecting a bunch of co-published miniseries teaming the Man of Steel with different Dark Horse published characters. There are 2 Superman and Aliens miniseries, the first one, and Superman vs. Aliens God War, which I just finished reading like 2 weeks ago. Superman Tarzan Sons of the Jungle, and the Superman Madman Hullabaloo. Which was a really fun and predictably weird read.
Huh. Now, that's half of... I have not read any of those.
Is that so?
No, I don't know. I guess sometimes with crossovers for characters I didn't really necessarily know, I didn't really partake in them. So I love... My God, I love Kevin Nolan artwork. Looks like there's some... And, Dan Jervis wrote some of them. Chuck Dixon wrote some of these.
Yep, Dixon wrote both of the Aliens crossovers.
I may have to half off. It's going to be mighty tempting. So let's see. It's why I'm glad I didn't place my order quite yet. I'm going to have to add that. I'm going to write that down here.
Temptations abound, as always.
It's like all the listeners say, "You guys made me spend more money." It's like, you made me spend more money, Murd. Damn you!
Yes, blessing us and cursing us simultaneously.
Yes.
I love you, but my wallet doesn't.
Right.
Oh, here's a Jamie D shout out on page 74. The third volume in Dark Horse's ongoing attempt to reprint the complete Elf Quest comics by Wendy and Richard Pini. And so it's 400 pages. It appears to be, I'm trying to see if there's any color involved. Oh, it says full color. Yeah, I just saw the FC. So yes, it's in color. I'm not sure if it was in color the first time around, but it certainly is now. And I intend at some point for us to go back and maybe do the first volume of this as a book of the month.
Oh, okay.
Sometime, because Because one of the last off-the-racks that Jamie selected for use on the show was the first issue of ElfQuest: The Final Adventure, Final Quest, I think they called it. None of us really liked it, couldn't understand what the heck was going on. So maybe we need to go back to the beginning and give it another shot.
Okay.
And thank you, Dark Horse, for giving us that opportunity. Now into the third volume of that opportunity, actually.
All right. Anything else for Dark Horse?
I don't think there is for me.
Okay. All right, then on to DC then?
All right, DC it'll be.
Okay.
So we get to put aside the physical catalog for a moment or two and go to our computers. And I can already see that this is going to be a bit of an uphill climb here, folks, because these PDFs are scrolling very slowly, so please bear with us.
First off is the DC Universe Rebirth #1, which is 75% off of DCBS. Only 74 cents.
And it's only $2.99 normal cover price.
Correct.
Too.
80 pages. It all begins here. Do not skip to the last page. Do not let a friend or message board ruin this comic for you. The future and past of the DC Universe starts here. Don't say we didn't warn you. And Murd, you decided to choose this as the DC Off the Rack selection for the month.
Absolute no-brainer, my friend. This is, it's got to be the most important Big Two comic published this month. And I'd say it does beat by a neck, I think, the Marvel Civil War II #1 being published at the same time. Or, well, actually, I guess technically this is coming out at the end of May.
Right, May 25th, I believe.
This is one of the comics in this volume of previews that is not coming out in June, but is coming out a little before.
Right.
So I guess it's technically not in direct competition with Civil War II for that reason. But even so, it's I think that the impact it's going to have on the universe in which it takes place is probably going to exceed that of Civil War II. It is my speculation anyway.
Now, speaking of your speculation, I'm going to put you on the spot. The cover of this issue has everybody reaching out towards a hand. Who do you think that hand belongs to?
I prefer to not even to speculate, actually.
Okay.
I've not given it an awful lot of thought. I'm assuming it's going to be some species of monitor, but I'm far from sure of that. I don't really want to be sure. I want to be surprised.
Okay.
Once I know, I'll analyze the hell out of it, but for the time being, I'll just let it remain a mystery.
Okay. And all of the DC rebirths are not coming out right away in June. They're sort of spread out.
Staggered over several months.
So, like, we've got Superman Rebirth #1.
By Peter J. Tomasi, a writer I trust, and Doug Mahnke.
Along with Superman #1. We've got Action Comics coming out with its new numbering of issue 957, going back to the original numbering with added everything else in between. And actually, I should have paused here to mention I spoke about all the various specials and bundles and what have you. And oh my God, DCBS, I bless them and curse them. They are going to I guess maybe. I'm going to buy their DC Rebirth bundle because they're bundling all the titles together for 60% off the cover price. It's already $2.99. 60% off. I was thinking about, I mentioned in the last episode, if they have some kind of bundle, I'm going to jump in. Well, I'm jumping in. Check that out if you're at all interested in trying out some of these titles here.
And if DCBS sticks to their MO, there will probably be similar bundles like that offered in the months to come.
Oh, it's like you guys are getting me. But, yeah, so I'm going to be trying that out. Like I said, I really was interested in Detective Comics. That interested me, of course. Of course, Batman with Tom King.
Oh, yep, which is next on the hit parade here.
Yep.
Batman Rebirth #1, featuring the threat of the Calendar Man. Tom, if your name alone wasn't enough to sell me on this. And he's apparently co-writing this first issue, this Rebirth special, with Scott Snyder. But with art by Mikhail Janin, who is his collaborator
Grayson.
on Grayson.
Yep.
And Calendar, but it's done. Just take my money right now. Totally in for that. And the concept for the Batman ongoing series sounds really interesting, too. Batman goes up against a pair of costumed vigilantes who are specifically targeting him. Batman is targeting the criminal element, and these two people are targeting him. Not because they're of criminal intent themselves necessarily, although they might be. We don't know them from Adam after all. But they seem to think that he is the greater threat than the villains he's facing, and so for the public good, they're going after him. And that is an interesting idea.
Yep. Detective Comics we talked about. Detective Comics has got to have Batman, Batwoman, Spoiler, Clayface. Oh my God.
Cassandra Cain.
Sandra Cain, yes. Red Robin.
Yeah, this is something that I think a lot of pre-Flashpoint fans are going to enjoy immensely. Oh, and have you noticed that there's a slight difference in Batman's costume design? He now has a yellow outline to his bat symbol.
Now you mentioned it, I did notice that, yes.
It's kind of like the oval redux.
Interesting. Of course, Aquaman, Flash Rebirth, both of them coming out. Green Lantern, we mentioned, Green Arrow. It looks like your big guns are getting the first wave coming out in the Rebirth.
Mm-hmm. So we do have to wait a little
Wonder
longer
Woman, right?
For the Benson sisters, Batgirl, and the Birds of Prey.
Right, but Wonder Woman with Greg Rucka writing.
I noticed that the Flash Rebirth special is supposed to be closely tied to the events of the DC Rebirth 80-pager.
Yes.
And ditto the
It
Titans.
says, do not read this issue until after you've read DC Universe Rebirth number. Well, honest to God, if you're going to get any of these, you probably want to read that first. Anyway, it comes out. Because I'm going to go to the comic shop the day it comes out and get my copy. I'm going to get a copy
You
of
don't do that that often
DCBS.
these days.
No, I get that because I got to read it right away. I'm going to be from my computer offline all week long. Just
If you want to preserve the surprise, that's what you got to do these days.
and then Titans Rebirth.
Yep, I figured out that lady in the green costume whose identity I couldn't figure out during episode 1600. It's Lilith.
Ah,
Lilith Clay.
okay. Wacky, and those are the Rebirth titles. How about Wacky Raceland number 1, Murd, with their Hanna-Barbera properties?
Yeah. You know, of the few Hanna-Barbera-derived series that they're putting out at DC, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to the Amanda Connor Flintstones coming down the line about another month after this. Future Quest looks awesome.
Yes.
I have a few reservations about Scooby Apocalypse, but I'm at least going to give it a try because the creative team is, well, a safe risk as far as I'm concerned. It looks like it could at least be fun. Racky Wasteland. Wow. No. So, yeah, Wacky Raceland does not inspire the same kind of confidence. I like Leonardo Manco's art, but I think they may be laying the post-apocalyptic survivalist takes on a little too thickly here. I'm just this side of letting Scooby Apocalypse get away with it. This is maybe a little too heavy. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to skip Wacky Raceland.
Okay. They have the first volume of the DC Superhero Girls coming out called Final Crisis.
Finals Crisis.
Oh, I'm sorry, Finals Crisis. I was reading too much of Finals Crisis.
Because they're students and they take exams.
But yeah, it's an all-ages DC Superhero Girls graphic novel. $9.99. Half off will be only $4.99 to DCBS.
It's a heck of a buy.
Yep.
Yeah, for the younger readers in your life or certain older readers as well. I do think that Finals Crisis gag was first used by Art and Franco, though. I'm convinced that's a Tiny Titans thing.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of Titans, right on the next page, we've got the hardcover edition of Teen Titans Earth 1, Volume 2. This is written by Jeff Lemire, art by Andy McDonald. It's kind of an alternate reality variant take on the Titans characters, not a part of regular DC continuity. So buy it for the creative team, buy it for the love of the characters. If you're a Titans fan, go for it. And it looks like there's a Doom Patrol tie-in, too, because Dr. Niles Calder is mentioned in the solicit copy.
Oh, interesting.
The Chief.
What else do we have here from DC? It looks interesting.
Well, we've got what I believe are the last 2 issues of the current volume of Justice League, because even though the rebirth is happening, there's still some loose ends to tie off with the rest of DC's DCU output. So these last 2 issues, number 51 is written by Dan Jurgens, and it features Luthor in his super armor. Art there is by Paul Pelletier, and inks by Tony Cordos. And issue 52, because Dan Didio did identify that as the ideal stopping point for a lot of the series that began with the relaunch back in 2011. Number 52 will be written by Dan Abnett, art again by Paul Pelletier, And that ties into the Titans Rebirth special, also written by Abnett, which, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, also ties in very closely with the events of DC Rebirth 80-page special number 1. So something to look into if you want to know exactly how the DC cosmology is being realigned by whatever happens in that 80-page comic.
Okay. I thought I heard.
Hark! Everly approaches.
Gentlemen, my apologies. Domestic crisis.
We understand, sir.
All right. Well, Chris, welcome back.
Thank you.
We have now sort of gone through the first part of DC's solicits with the Rebirth titles, and now we're into some of the other issues there. So please jump in if you have anything to say.
Honestly, I haven't, beyond what we talked about in our last episode, where I thought I was incredibly positive, by the way, I haven't looked at the online thing yet.
Okay.
So, again, I'm just, like I said in the last episode, there are certain writers I'm looking forward to seeing how they apply their skills to certain characters and certain concepts. You know, we mentioned Wonder Woman with Rucka, Aquaman with Abnett. Is Deathstroke 19 the first Priest issue?
No, that it'll be number 1, I'm going to assume.
Oh, okay. You know, again, we've talked about how wonderful it is that Tom King has been given the opportunity to be the scribe on Batman. So, like I said last time, as a retailer, I have a very dim view of a lot of these events, and that's based on 17 years of hard-earned and hard-fought experience, which I'm certainly entitled to discuss. But as a reader, I'm looking forward to certain writers and seeing how they apply their gifts to some of these characters. So I'll just kind of leave it at that when it comes to Rebirth.
Certainly. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here through DC?
Page 61, Dr. Fate fans and followers, number 13 of that series, still written by Paul Levitz, old favorite of ours, introduces or reintroduces Kent Nelson as something of a mentor, I guess, to the current bearer of the Mantle of Fate, Khalid Nassour. So, they're talking about reintroducing Legacy to the DC universe. Well, there's Levitz falling in step with that initiative.
And I think that's one of the things I'm most curious about in this event is how they're going to approach the concept of legacy. For example, I remember Danielle was wondering in our previous episode, are they going to fuse the old DCU with the New 52? Are they just going to establish sort of retcon, sort of a history for the New 52? I'm just interested to see how they approach that, because that's one of the things I think is sorely missing from, and why I lost interest in it pretty quickly in the New 52, was that there really was no sense of a great sense of legacy, which I think is so intrinsic to what makes DC and their concepts so compelling.
For certain.
Yeah, I'm thinking once that Rebirth, the DCU Rebirth comes out, hopefully a lot more will be made clear. I'm hoping, because that I'm really looking forward to, that number 1 issue there.
Let's see, on page 62, Teen Titans number 21 by Tony Bedard and Ian Churchill has the team going up against Monsieur Malat and the Brain. Page 63, Frank Miller's Dark Knight 3, The Master Race number 6. How about that costume Carrie Kelly is wearing?
Yeah, how about that? Very Kathy Kane Batwoman reminiscent.
Have you guys been reading that series?
I gave it a wide berth, Chris.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll get around to reading it eventually, but...
That's 2025, maybe, you think?
Yeah, that's about when I'd get around to it if I had bought it off the shelf. But actually, it has a better chance of being read by me sooner than that, because I didn't buy it in single issues.
Okay.
Pants, how about you?
I had no interest in it at all.
May I ask why, sir?
Well, again, at the time, I had I was not big on DC at all, and this just didn't excite me. I wasn't too keen on, these Dark Knight 2?
Mm-hmm. Dark Knight Strikes Again, I think it was called.
Right. Plus all of the various... I knew it was going to be collected at some point, and I read there's different editions with a mini comic. I can't be bothered with that. So.
Yeah.
Oh, Pants, how dare you have a negative opinion on a DC property? How will the show be able to continue? Anyway, I've read issue 1, and I found it relatively engaging, but I have the next couple, but I haven't even read them yet. So one of the challenges I'm facing now is just because my limited free time, as we all deal with that, is what picking and choosing what to read.
Right.
Because as a retailer, because I get a better discount, I do bring a fair amount of books home. But even then, I'm still find that there's some things that just will go right to the bottom of the pile, and there's other stuff I read immediately. And there's titles that, like, I'm trying to catch up on Amazing Spider-Man. I just finally read issue 3. I mean, it's so that's always a challenge. But I was interesting, but it wasn't interesting enough where I felt I had to read the next issue right away. So, take what you will from that. But
Okay.
I'll get to it eventually. What else for DC, gentlemen?
Well, scrolling.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead, if you don't mind, then to some of the
Please.
collected editions.
Go right ahead.
I did mention briefly on episode 1600, and I'll mention it again. There is coming out with the Suicide Squad, the Silver Age hardcover. This is going to reprint for the first time the Silver Age Adventures of Suicide Squad, better known perhaps as Task Force X, which really has not a whole lot to do with the current incarnation of the Suicide Squad, but nevertheless, I am very curious about it. I have the issue of the Brave and Bold that are listed in the collection, but I didn't even know that they had stories in Star Spangled War stories. So there's about, maybe close to a dozen stories in there that I've never even wouldn't even known about on my radar. So that's a no-brainer for me, and it's half off price, hardcover, sign me up. So because I usually buy those collections, but that one really intrigues me.
Mm-hmm.
And people have to realize that these are non-superheroic characters
Yeah.
in this original incarnation of the Suicide Squad.
See, back on page 72, there's a collection of Bronze Age Batman Brave and the Bold stories. So it's issues 87 through 122. That's 3 solid years worth of team-up stories with Batman featuring characters.
Universe H.
No,
B.
B.
Oh, is
right.
it B? Bob for Bob Haney? Is that
That's
what it is?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, right, Bob.
I was thinking Haney. For
Right.
H.
No,
All
I think
fair enough.
it's right. Earth B for Bob.
Yeah.
Bob, Brave and the Bold, or Bad.
Oh.
Depending on who you ask.
Well, I mean, again, I have all of these issues because my Brave and Bold collection goes back to, I think, it goes back quite a while. I just haven't. I've read some of them. I can't remember much of them there. But it's this kind of stuff like, I have to go back and find my issues, put them in order, and then read them. And then read them.
Yep,
Now,
and-
Pants,
Yes.
the sheer awesome scope and breadth of your comic collection, is there any hope of you ever really organizing it?
If I get my butt in gear, I am just so damn lazy, and I'm, binge watching TV shows now, and it's like, but maybe doing this.
I feel like I have to apologize for that query because as soon as I asked it, your entire body sagged in the chair.
Well, I mean, it's a Herculean task, and I have people who I know will help me out at some point if I get to the point where I can have them over to the house.
Just have that sorting party anytime you like.
Yes.
We'll come running.
But I really want to. I have dreams of having a nice house with bookshelves and maybe a bunch of drawer boxes and just everything in order. God,
Are we talking 50 long boxes?
well, Chris, I've got almost 22,000 comics in my house.
Oh my God! Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
That's
a lot more than 50. Okay,
Yeah. So baby steps. I've been told.
Yeah.
Right.
Baby steps because
It's supposed to be recreation, after all. Comics are
Yeah.
supposed to be an escape from the Herculean tasks in your life, not to add
Yeah.
to them. So
That's true,
just
that's
pursue it at your own pace, and let no one criticize you
I'm
for
planning to live long enough to read everything and have it in order.
that. Heck yes. It's like Peter always used to say. He refuses to die until he's read every single comic he owns.
Yes. That's my promise to you. Who am I promising to anyway? I am not going to keel over until I read every comic that I have.
that means
God.
Pants been with us for a very long time. And
Oh,
I'm grateful
from
for
your
that.
lips to God's ears.
May it be so.
Got a lot to get off the bucket list yet.
Let's see, what other DC fun trades can we talk about here? We've got a collection of some fairly high-quality pre-Flashpoint Aquaman stories, Volume 2 of the Sub Diego
Ah, yes.
arc, in which the city of San Diego sank beneath the ocean, became like a new Atlantis, and Aquaman became its de facto leader. That was an interesting arc.
Yes.
Murray, let me jump in for just a moment because just recently I listened to one of my all-time favorite episodes, Spotlight on Aquaman,
Oh, man.
which is masterfully done. Because just like with the Hawkman Spotlight, Peter and company they unravel the convoluted history of the character, and they talk about Sub Diego quite a bit. What a wonderful episode.
Episode
Outstanding.
840 from May of 2010, 6 years ago.
Yep. And the Meagle Aquaman is there. As a
Oh, yes, he's in the studio right there, yes.
There he is.
So
Okay,
it's a great spotlight.
And I love this trivia question. What was the first comic book that Aquaman appeared on the cover of?
Murd, I know the answer if you don't.
My best guess, Adventure Comics number something. I might not even have the series right.
Chris, hit it.
It's Brave and the Bold 28.
Brave and the Bold 28
With the
from
Justice League.
1959.
Yep.
That was the first time he appeared on the cover.
Even though he was introduced in, I think, 41.
Yep, he was in
So-
Adventure Comics. He was some backups, even in Detective Comics around that time. But, yep, that was his first cover appearance. The more you know.
Hard to believe.
Well, I should have known you're not good with numbers and things, but I still had to give it a shot.
No, there's more to that than just numbers, though. I should have at least known what the story was, but I did not. I really thought that the Sea King had been given a little more respect than that.
Nope.
Since he was already 20 years old by the time he first appeared.
Close to it, yeah, on the cover, yeah.
At least he's one of the few DC heroes they kept publishing, though, consistently through the Golden Age. And
Yes.
Silver.
Yeah.
So
Him along with Green Arrow, and
Yeah.
of course the big three.
So he was a survivor, but even back then, though, not given the respect he deserved.
Yes.
Right below that Sub Diego trade, though, there's The Daring New Adventures of Supergirl, Volume 1, trade paperback. Written by Paul Kupperberg and Joey Cavalieri. Art by Infantino, Bob Oxner, who's known for drawing beautiful women, and others. So this is a collection of early 80s stories. And those of you who are following the CBS Supergirl TV show, this contains the first appearance of the character Reactron, who menaced Supergirl in one of the early episodes of the first season.
You're killing me. Because, again, I have all these issues somewhere in my house.
Yeah, I kind of wish I did, because I'm sure they're easy to find.
Well, they come up and find them for me, god damn it.
you make your house sound like a labyrinth of just floor-to-ceiling, like, comic warrants. I mean,
It's not. It's
Have you
not.
installed the Minotaur yet?
No, it's not like hoarders, but I do have to walk gently around spots in the house.
fantastic.
Oh my god, I need help. But enough about me. Back to previews, please,
Yeah, more
gentlemen.
comics. Page 75, some quality reads here. Green Arrow by Kevin Smith.
I love that. Yep.
All 15 issues of that run in trade paperback, $24.99.
Speaking of onomatopoeia,
Oh, yes, indeed, because a villain by that precise name. A serial killer of minor superheroes who spoke his sound effects out loud. I don't think we ever really learned what his deal was.
no, but he showed up quite dramatically and later on, and oh man, I can't go into it, but that was good stuff.
Good stuff indeed. Let's see, page 76, we've got Teen Titans, New Teen Titans, Volume 5, and this is it's collecting that section of the run of the 80s Titans series that included the recent Comic Geek Speak Book of the Month selection, The Judas Contract.
Excellent.
So
And I should remind people, our next book of the month, which we'll get to, I'm sure, not too distant future, is Preacher.
Right.
Volume 1 and possibly Volume 2.
And we know, Brian, you're all well up to date on that.
Partially way through Volume 9, the final
You're
trade.
on the home
almost
stretch
done.
there.
Down the home stretch. In between my sleeping and binge watching of TV. And work.
Oh, yeah, that's a secondary consideration at
Yeah.
best. Then on page 77 is the Suicide Squad hardcover you mentioned.
As well as the very bottom of that page, a first trade of the Greg Rucka written Wonder Woman books.
And in our last episode, when we were talking about Rucka taking out Wonder Woman again, I'm pleased DC's re-releasing the first trade of his, because his take on Wonder Woman I thought was magnificent. Just approaching Wonder Woman as an ambassador of her people to, the rest of humanity and how she deals with the intrigue and the politics of that. It's a magnificent series, a highest recommendation.
Wow, and this collects issues, looks like 195 to 205, and the original graphic novel. Pronounce it for me, Murd.
Oh, boy. Hikatea is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
It's either Hikatea or Hikatea, but I'm sticking with Hikatea.
That's
Okay.
a fantastic graphic novel.
Yes, it is.
Good collection. That's a great collection. How much is that, Pants? I don't have it in front of me. How much is that collection?
$29.99. You get it for half off at DCBS for only $14.99.
I need to check how many single issues of that Rucka run I have, because if it's not many, I think I may just jump on board with this, because I'd like to read the Hikatea. Apparently, it's pretty highly regarded, and I've never read that story.
Yeah, and
Merv,
that-
I almost guarantee you're going to love that. And for people who want to try some Wonder Woman, especially before Rocket takes on the character again, this is a trade you should be purchasing. Highest recommendation.
yeah, and that trade alone, just that graphic novel, was like around $20 or so anyway. Mm-hmm. So this is a pretty amazing package there.
It's kind of a
Sure
steal,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Book 2 of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol being collected in trade paperback.
That's a series I've got to read. I've always heard wonderful things. I've never read it.
Stop it! Stop it!
We're doing our job too well here.
No, gee, Pants, do you have it? Yes, I have the issue somewhere.
Oh, I love the third person. I look forward to that every recording.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. But I know Bill's been reading Doom Patrol, and he's eating it up. He's loving it, and he has superlative taste. So I'm sure it's well worth reading.
Yeah, it's some of the most delectably weird material ever to see print on the 4-color page. Introducing Flex Mentallo.
Yes.
Ah, that's right. See, if Shane were still collecting toys, he'd probably be interested in the animated series Batwing that you find on page 85 of the regular previews
God.
in the DC Direct section.
That thing is 3 feet long. Now, where's Deemer to say that's what she said?
I love the continuity. Well done, Murph.
All right. Anything else from DC before we move
I'm good.
on?
Oh, I have to mention the action figure of the DC Icons accessory pack on page 91.
The second accessory pack.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of it's props basically. It's
Yep.
there's a tiny little Batmite.
I see that.
There's the Helm of Fate. There's a random baseball bat apparently wielded by Harley Quinn. A couple of little Starospores. A boxing glove generated by Green Lantern's power ring. Lightning hands for the Flash. For those Infantino-esque motion effects.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, it's tempting really. Just for the Batmite alone, but $28 is maybe a little much to pay for just a little plastic Batmite. Still though, tempting.
But it's only $19.04 through DCBS at 32% off.
I'll consider it.
Okay. Considered then.
I think that's all for me from DC.
Me too.
All right. So next on to IDW.
A lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in here. Wow.
Yeah, it looks like we got a 5-issue weekly miniseries starring the mutant street punks Bebop and Rocksteady. It's called Bebop and Rocksteady Destroy Everything.
Aren't those favorites of yours, Mert?
Oh, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah.
But I don't you like those two characters in particular? Bebop and Rocksteady? Or am I
they're-
misremembering that?
I like them okay. I wouldn't say they're favorites of mine necessarily.
Okay.
But yeah, and this one, just the fact that it's a miniseries starring the bad guys. And it's a timey-wimey miniseries, too, because it's...
Any wibbly wobbly?
Yeah, probably. I think it's almost certainly also wibbly-wobbly, yes. But yeah, they apparently get their hands on a time travel device, and they just have chaotic misadventures throughout the time stream, visit their past pre-mutated selves, go back to the age of the dinosaurs, encounter the turtles when they were just turtles and not mutants. Yeah, fun for a hardcore TMNT fan.
By the way, quick anecdote. When we were watching the second season of Daredevil, which, by the way, I finished, Pants.
Excellent. How about that last scene?
We'll talk about that later. But
Oh.
my
And
family
Deborah Ann Woll.
suddenly all said, "Oh, wait a minute! Now we get it. The hand and the foot and all that." So they finally understood that TMNT was riffing on Daredevil essentially with all that.
Yep.
So that was fun.
Glad we're all caught up. Oh, did you point out Stick and Splinter to them also?
They got that as well.
Very good. We're all up to speed. Oh, page 90, speaking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villains, there's a hardcover collection of a bunch of one-shots that IDW's put out over a period of several months over the last couple of years, just spotlighting different TMNT opponents. So Bebop and Rocksteady are in that, too, as well as Baxter Stockman and Shredder himself and a few others.
Does IDW still printing the original hardcovers with the original Eastman and Laird material? Because I know they were doing, like with G.I. Joe, they were doing some deluxe editions of that work. Because interested in the Turtles, for me, you really need to start with those original stories from the 80s.
I think what you're talking about is right here on the bottom of page 90, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Works. And
Yes, you're right, Mark. There we go. Yep, that answers my question. Excellent.
Yep, recolored for a modern audience.
Oh, that's right, because originally, of course, they were black and white indie comics. All right, so IDW continues its march to licensing glory with Star Trek titles, Ghostbusters titles, Transformers.
Bunch of Ghostbusters stuff to tie in with the new movie expected out this summer.
That's right. The female cast, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Oh, there they are on page 94. I have to jump ahead. I have to talk about page 100.
Okay, go right ahead then.
Pants, I knew you would appreciate this. G.I. Joe Real American Hero Artist Edition. This collects issues 1, 2, 21, which is the classic silent interlude issue, 24, 26, The Origin of Snake Eyes, and G.I. Joe Yearbook 2, and plus a cover gallery. Listen to this roll call of glory. Of course, Larry Hama, the writer. Artists Herb Trimpe, Don Perlin, Mike Zeck, Russ Heath, Steve Lailiola, Larry Hama, Michael Golden. In! Immediately. I don't know if I speak for Shane, but as a lover of the original Marvel series, there's no question I'll be purchasing this for myself.
I'm sure you do speak for Shane, but I'm less sure that you speak for Shane's budget.
Fair enough, my friend. Maybe I can help him out there. So, well, I must say, even even for retailers, these books are not cheap.
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't begrudge them the price because they're one of a kind items that, it's not like you're just buying some omnibus reprinting material. These are, again, the scanned original art pages, and as I'm sure Pants can attest, a lot of these pages you could never afford in real life if you wanted to go out and buy some of them. So this is the next best thing for us proletarians.
And actually, all the interior art to issue 21, the silent issue, is
Yes.
owned by one person.
Really?
Anybody we know?
Somebody I know. I saw him at the convention in the Secaucus there. I mean, I think he might have had it posted up on the interwebs at some point as a collection. But yeah,
Very generous, this person, to
Yes.
allow all of it to be scanned for this
yes.
book.
Now, I have one other thing here. I'm looking on the DCBS website, but I don't see it in IDW's solicits here. I might have missed it here. It might even be like retro. It's the Lock and Key slipcase set, the holiday edition. It says, "Unlock the mysteries of Key House." Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez's extraordinary tale of the Locke family is collected in its entirety in this handsome slipcase set. Includes all 6 softcover volumes of the Lock and Key series, a perfect gift for the comic reader in your life. It's $99.99, but it's 35% off at $64.99. Again, it's listed here as a ship date of May. May 11th of 2016. But I don't see it actual in the book here. Has this been solicited before? Does it ring a bell with you guys?
It may have. Usually these collected volumes are solicited a little further in advance than the single-issue comics.
Because I know you guys talked about it, and I hear so many good things about it. But sometimes I hesitate to buy something like that without ever knowing anything about it. I mean,
I love Volume 1, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the story.
Or maybe because
Same here.
I'll borrow one of your guys' volumes and look that over after you've done with Preacher. Then okay, let me do that then.
It'd be my pleasure to loan you the first 3.
Oh, well, one at a time, sir.
Let's go to the-
I'm jumping ahead just a bit here.
Sure.
On page 115, Rocketeer at War. I must have totally missed this. Mark Guggenheim writing, Dave Bullock, Jay Bowen the art. This looks really fun.
I do remember you actually saying that it looked like it might be fun when it was solicited as
Oh,
a
I did.
miniseries.
Okay.
How soon they forget.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I'm
here's
like
your-
Civ as I get older.
Understood. But here's your second chance.
Yep. So that looks like it's. I love the cover.
Now let's.
What else is jumping out of people for IDW?
Well, let's see.
Well, isn't there one more thing you need to take care of?
Oh, at least. Page 110, I'm going to mention this William Gibson written miniseries, Archangel. Number 1 was solicited last month. I don't think we knew at that time it was a miniseries, but apparently it's a 5-issue miniseries, and it's William Gibson, the father of cyberpunk's first foray into comic book writing. And apparently it's another time travel type story, and it involves World War II.
That's always something I'm interested in.
Yeah, I'm glad I pre-ordered the first issue, and now that I know it's only a 5-issue commitment, I'll see it through to the end. And on the opposite page, page 111, we come to something interesting. Speaking of Lock and Key.
Which actually is listed in the offered again. That must be where it came from.
Ah, there we go. There's your explanation. But the creative team of Lock and Key is now tackling the classic 80s horror TV series Tales from the Dark Side. Apparently, writer Joe Hill pitched a revival of that series to somebody in the entertainment industry and was turned down, but then he brings it directly to IDW. He's pairing up with his old partner in crime, Gabriel Rodriguez, for 4 issues, roughly 3 anthology-style horror tales in each of those 4 issues. So the first issue is coming out from IDW as a previews gem of the month. This is all on page 111, and that is going to be our independent off-the-rack selection for the month of June.
Yes, indeed. Looking forward to that immensely.
I must confess, I do ordinarily kind of look down my nose at properties that are brought to comics after being rejected by other media, but the creative team involved here, that is absolutely not the case. I'm eager to see this particular property brought to comics.
And half off cover price at DCBS, only $1.99.
How convenient.
How convenient.
I also want to commend IDW on page 117 for continuing to be dedicated to reprinting newspaper
Oh,
comic
absolutely,
strips.
yeah.
You've got Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, 1981-82 by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and is it Fred Kidder or Kita? Do you know how to pronounce his last
I
name?
don't know.
What page is this on?
117.
Might even be Kaida.
Okay.
So it's
Mr. Weathington can probably help us there, and I'll put some money in the jar. And then next to that, of course, Walt Disney's Donald Duck, The Daily Newspaper Comics, Volume 3, 1943 to 1945. Writer Bob Karp, artist Al Talaferro. So, great historical stuff. Kudos to IDW. And then, of course, we enter the world of Strawberry Shortcake and My Little Pony.
Still going strong.
Yep.
And on page 122, we've got some Eddie Campbell content. As a little while ago, we had the opportunity to buy from IDW/Top Shelf the first volume of Eddie Campbell's Complete Bacchus, which is the everyday adventures of the Greek god of wine. Roman, technically. Bacchus is the Roman name. Dionysus is the Greek. But anyway, the god of wine's adventures as the owner of a tavern on Earth, and other figures from mythology kind of drift in and out. And it's a very highly respected indie series. And Eddie Campbell is the writer and artist. And this is the second and final, second of 2 volume of that complete series. It's 552 pages, $39.95, soft cover. I bought the first one, and I will definitely buy this one just for completeness sake and to experience the whole saga. And, if you want, on the same page, if you missed the first volume, there's a slipcase being offered, collecting both volumes 1 and 2 of Bacchus and another project of Eddie Campbell's, Alec, The Years Have Pants.
Up.
And they're not giving him back.
Shouting out to our main man again. Siren Song.
Siren Song.
And that 3-volume set can be yours for $100.
Anything else for IDW, gentlemen?
Nothing that I see.
No, I think we've reached the end there, which means it's time for Image.
Image.
Indeed.
All right there at the starting gate. Gem of the Month is identified as Jupiter's Legacy, Volume 2, Number 1 of 5. And returning to this tale of superhero dynasties, begun with Jupiter's Legacy Volume 1. Then there was a Jupiter's Circle miniseries, which was like a prequel, telling about the first generation of superheroes, Golden Agers, basically, which I thought from the very beginning were the more interesting characters in the series anyway. Now we're back to talking about their bratty, spoiled kids. And so Mark Miller reunites with artist Frank Quitely for this third, if you count Jupiter Circle, installment in the Jupiter saga.
Now, from a scheduling standpoint, I find it interesting to note here that it boasts monthly Frank Quitely. Now, I wonder if they had Quitely put a lot of issues in the can first, because we all know, I'm a big fan of Quitely personally. I know some people don't care for his art, but looking forward to giving this a shot.
And the first issue is half off at DCBS, only $1.99.
Yep. And so hopefully they got him to work ahead, and they have all 5 issues in the can already.
I'm interested also on page 130, a new Howard. Now, Mert, I don't think you're a Chaykin fan, correct?
That is correct, Chris.
Okay, so I tend to enjoy his work, depending on what it is, but Midnight of the Soul. So it's 1950, and Joel Breakstone, former GI liberator of Auschwitz, is seriously damaged goods. He hasn't exhaled a sober breath in 5 years, until the sheltered life he's created for himself unravels and he begins the long night that will change his life forever. It's like an interesting concept. I think I'm going to give this a try.
Well,
I
half
love
off first
Jacob's
issue.
take on the Shadow, for example. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm saying the first issue was half off.
Yeah, historical setting does appeal, I must admit.
I'm jumping into page 142. Again, this is a book that I always make a point of praising because I really want to encourage people to give it a try. Is Lazarus. Now, again, you have to start with the first trade, but this is a new story arc. And again, this is about corporate families openly and brazenly running the earth because countries basically don't exist. They don't exist anymore. And it's divided up by fiefdoms by these families. And it looks like here they're moving towards a final conflict as to who's actually going to be the one holding all the cards at the end. So I can't emphasize enough how I think this is Greg Ruck and Michael Lark's masterpiece. And on the next page, Paper Girls number 6, wonderful new series by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang. And it looks like issue 6, they're taking the book in an interesting new direction. So 2 titles I'm very excited about. And I always look forward to reading every month, and I encourage others to give them a chance. Both have $9.99 Volume 1 trades out there. So,
Yeah, I'm loving Paper Girls.
on page 145, another series I've been enjoying steadily is Thief of Thieves. This is Robert Kirkman property, but most of the writing has been done by Andy Diggle. Nick Spencer did some writing, and magnificent, consistent artwork through every issue by Sean Martinborough, who I had at one of my Wild Pig cons. Hell of a nice guy. It's a great caper book. I really recommend it. Highest recommendation for that comic, actually. And again, the first several volumes are out in trade.
I would like to give a little bit of recognition and praise to Image for the slight difference they've made to the graphic design of their previews listings here, because they are now giving us very large, visible, and clear logos to inform us of the beginning of new story arcs, ending of story arcs, beginning of new series, ending of old series. It's convenient for us. It's helpful as far as making decisions as to where to jump on and off of things, and I do appreciate it. And an example of that can be found on page 164, where we're told very clearly that Starve by Brian Wood is coming to an end with issue 10.
Oh, I love that series. We've talked about that before at some length on the air. I'm sorry to see that, but at the same time, I love when a creator takes his vision to its conclusion. And Pants, I'm sure you can appreciate that when you finish Preacher, for example.
Yes, looking forward to that.
That's always refreshing to see that. It's one of the reasons why I'm so stoked by so many different indie titles today. And again, especially by what Image is doing. And from a retailer's perspective, I concur what they're doing here. And the layout of the previews is fantastic. Because also it helps me order as well. And Bill order in addition to fans. So that's a great touch. And again, I like to say this repeatedly because I just want to emphasize it. I just think Image is one of the leading companies now when it comes to providing readers with just the sheer possibility and breadth and scope of what the comic medium can address. When you look at just the incredible variety of titles and genres, I mean everything from Manifest Destiny, which is Lewis and Clark meet the supernatural, to mention Lazarus and Revival by our old friend of the show, Mike Norton and Tim Seeley. Incredible Savage Dragon still going, issue 216. I'll mention, as I have to mention every month, that although it's not in this particular issue, but Saga, which, and just in case anybody didn't hear, I'll say it again, how much I love Saga and how much I consider it one of the top comics made today. And I'm going to be saying that probably in every episode. But Pants, where are you on Walking Dead? You read that book?
I think I've got one issue, the last one I haven't read yet, but I'm still getting it, still enjoying it.
Okay, because have you gotten to Negan?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
yeah, I'm caught up pretty
right,
much caught up.
I dropped the book after issue 100.
Yeah, I know you did speak about that. Yes, I remember that.
I don't know if this is the right time to discuss that, but I'm looking forward to talking about that. I'm interested in your take on that moment in the book's history.
Okay.
So, Elmerd on page 171, a book you've been touting, Huck Volume 1.
Oh, yes.
As a trade.
Yep, the 6 issues. This is the winner of the Comic Geek Speak Best of 2015 award for Best New Hero. So it's kind of a take on the Superman archetype. as just a Superman-like figure, as just a simple country boy who just wants to hang around his hometown and do good deeds for his neighbors, and what happens when he's forced into onto the national stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of an inspiring story, actually, and it's a pleasant break from some of the bloodier and more sordid things that Mark Millar has done over the past couple of decades.
I want to mention on page 174, they have Velvet Volume 3, Brubaker and Epting's magnificent Cold War espionage story. This is, again, if you haven't experienced Ed Brubaker's take on noir or on espionage, this is, again, another title I highly recommend. Again, one of the top writers in comics, just master of his craft. And Epting's art is just gorgeous.
On page 167, for that touch of Ennis, we've got a trade paperback of the creator-owned Adventures in the Rifle Brigade, originally published by Vertigo. I think this is going to be both 3-issue miniseries, both the Adventures in the Rifle Brigade and ARB Operation Bollock, in which the madmen of the Rifle Brigade go in search of the cursed left testicle of Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, if you love Garth Ennis and if you enjoy World War II, I mean, Ennis does magnificent, very serious military comics. He was doing those for years. He did the war stories first with DC. Now that's now been moved over to is it Archaea or Avatar? I just brain farted. It's Avatar, isn't it?
Which series?
His current military comics. I'm ashamed. I just brain farted completely on the.
I think it's been Avatar that's been published.
It is Avatar. You're right, Mert. Yeah, it is Avatar. Yes, so it's Avatar. But he's been doing, through he did some military comics at DC. He did some with Diamond Entertainment, and now he's doing with Avatar. And for me, the guy never misses in this genre. And this is a wonderful synthesis of Ennis's trademark humor. And Pants knows that because he's been reading Preacher. Mm-hmm. And World War II. It's really fun stuff. And it's such a great riff on things like Sergeant Friend, the Howling Commandos, and that whole genre basically. So good stuff.
2 more things from me in Image. On page 168, we've got the first volume of a trade of some classic independent comics from China Clugston Flores, who was China Clugston Major at the time she produced this work. But it's Blue Monday, and it's about a bunch of young scenesters and their everyday misadventures. Presented here in color, only $9.99. This is something that I've been meaning to try for years, and now might be my chance. And opposite that, on page 169, Carbon Gray Omnibus Collection trade paperback. It's sort of a science fiction swordsman story. To this day, I'm not 100% sure what exactly it's about, but the painted artwork is beautiful. We had Wong Nguyen, one of the creators, on the show several years ago. I think it was one of those rare occasions when it was just Brian Deemer and I interviewing somebody. And that's it's just on the strength of the art alone, I would recommend the Carbon Gray miniseries.
Yeah, the art is beautiful. God.
Yeah, by the way, Merg, just episode 1018, February of 2011, Indie Spotlight, talking with Hong Wen about Carbon Gray.
Wow, your archive searching skills are sharp, I must say.
There was a nice edit there with the last 5 minutes. I just was looking for it online.
Wow. You even edited my memory because I don't. It seemed like just a couple of seconds. I like the knuckle crack you just did there, too.
Oh, thank you.
A man is at the top of his game, master of his domain.
All right.
King of his castle.
A number 1.
Marvel, gentlemen?
Yes. Marvel.
Well, we turn to page 2, and now we have our Marvel OTR. Mm-hmm. Civil War Volume 2, Number 1, Brian Michael Bendis scribe, David Marquez art. The explosive first chapter of the comic event in capitals everyone will be talking about. We come out swinging with a blistering, double-sized first issue from the creative team behind last year's best-selling debut of Invincible Iron Man, which is a book I'm enjoying, and Miles Morales. A new Inhuman with the ability to profile the future emerges, and the ramifications ripple into every corner of the Marvel Universe. Lines are drawn, bodies fall, and the Marvel Universe will be rocked to its very core. The action starts here. Thoughts, gentlemen?
It sounds kind of like a prequel to Minority Report. There's this character who can predict the future, and the main characters of the Marvel Universe stand around for numerous pages debating the ramifications of this discovery, and eventually people start punching each other, and the brawl just kind of spills out into the streets of the Marvel Universe, and that's your next several months of Marvel Comics.
Careful, Murd, you're sounding very cynical there.
I'm afraid I am. But yeah, while you were out of the room, Chris, I opined that DC Rebirth, the big 80-page special, is going to be the more impactful of the two major tentpole releases of the big two for this month.
That based on the propaganda we've seen so far, that's probably I think it's a pretty safe, educated guess. But obviously, I'm going to try this. I've always been a fan of Bendis' work for the most part. What I find interesting is it looks like the comics are now really following what you see in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where they're really emphasizing the Inhumans as major players in the Marvel Universe. And in fact, what's interesting is, again, much of the catalog is all crossover titles, which already kind of exhausts me. But on page 10, the X-Men Civil War crossover, where it looks like the X-Men are going to end up in conflict with the Inhumans.
There's a meta level to this.
Over essentially, who's going to dominate? They're saying that the Terrigen Mist circle the globe, igniting the Inhuman race while crippling mutant kind. What's fun is on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's clear that they've made the Inhumans the mutants of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, essentially.
Right, because the actual mutants are not available to them thanks to contractual obligations with Fox.
It's interesting. Let's see how they approach it here.
And I must apologize. I can't find a discount for this anywhere in the DCBS listing there. I've seen issue 2, but not issue 1. So I'm going to say it's got to be at least 40% off the cover price.
At least, yeah.
But if not more. But I'm sorry, I just can't find it. There's so many Civil War issues here with the tie-ins. It's like, I can't find it. So
Pansy, don't sweat it. You do the best you can. So now, anything? What else jumps out at people for Marvel? Actually, quick, minor tangent. Are you both watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or no?
yes.
I kind of let it drop about halfway through the first half of the first season.
Okay, Murd, do you mind if I ask Pants a question then?
I'll just take off my headphones.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, Pants, I'm one episode back.
Okay.
Honey. So I just watched the one where Mockingbird and Hunter leave the team.
Yes.
Now, can you give me the background? Are they off the show? Because I love those characters. I know she was supposed to get a show, but that didn't happen, right?
As I understand it, they're both characters going to get a show at some point, is my understanding.
Okay.
But that's why they left. But how about that farewell to them?
Oh,
though?
it was great.
Ugh,
It's really well
wonderful,
done.
yes.
So I'm sorry to see, because I especially like the Hunter character quite a bit, because he's so irreverent and doesn't give a shit in so many ways.
Yes.
But I hope they use them in some other way, because I think that those two characters have a great chemistry.
Yes,
those
they
two
do.
actors in those roles.
Yep.
So that's all I just wanted to ask you about. So
Yes. All right, welcome back.
Heyo.
Heyo.
thank you for that indulgence, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure.
I mean, for the Marvel previews, because a lot of these books are ongoing, I tend to go to the trades unless somebody wants to talk about a particular floppy. Of course.
I didn't notice anything, just that I just got my books the other day, and I haven't read yet Black Widow. I'm looking forward to getting into that with Mark Waid and Samney.
It's fun. It's a
And
lot of fun.
there's a very now of course I can't find it in the actual book. Oh, here it is, page 58. Silver Surfer number 6, if they numbered it differently, number 200, an
Great cover. Look at
oversized
that.
anniversary issue. Fantastic! I am
That's a
still
great cover.
loving that. Mike Allred, Dan Slott, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very good stuff.
Can't miss monthly release from Marvel.
Yeah, I
for me.
agree. I agree 100%. And I remember Danielle in our last recording talked about how she's very much drawn to sort of, I don't know if I think she used the word eccentric. Forgive me if she didn't, but she was talking about titles that are kind of more on the periphery, kind of removed from all of the big event hullabaloo. And this book is a perfect example of that.
Oh, yes.
essentially.
Yep, I am right there with both of you on that.
And the back and forth with the Surfer and Dawn Greenwood, that's one of my favorite right now comic relationships, if you will, going on in
Oh, it's magnificent.
yeah, wonderful stuff.
I should point out on page 68, actually, we probably mentioned this last time, but I'll just mention it again, a new version of The Punisher.
Yes.
What a great creative team. The wonderful artist Becky Cloonan is writing, and then Steve Dillon returns to the character.
Yes.
He and Innes had a magnificent run on the character some years back.
And forgive my ignorance, can I assume that was post-Preacher?
Yes.
Yes, it was
Okay.
post-Preacher.
Yep, that was the Marvel Knights era, so right around the turn of the millennium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it?
Probably either as Preacher was ending or probably right after it
Okay.
ended.
Yeah, I'm with my chronology, I'm not sure when Preacher ended it's publishing? Because,
Preacher ended, I want to say, year 2000.
okay.
All right, then Punisher
I think, don't quote me, but I think it's the year 2000.
Okay.
probably came pretty close on the heels of that then, because that's right. The original Punisher Marvel Knights publication.
That's when he was an angel.
Right. Yeah, that 4-issue miniseries that Punisher Ennis just kind of swept aside in like one caption.
Yes, he did.
Well,
I'm sorry, Pants. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're speaking of some issues from Marvel, how about Star Wars Han Solo #1?
Very excited.
How about that?
I love the premise. I just read, what it's about.
Well, go ahead. Tell us what it's all about, sir.
Well, it's what page is that on? I'm sorry.
That's on page 102.
Everyone's favorite scoundrel gets his very own series. Han is given a top-secret undercover mission for the rebellion, rescuing a number of informants and spies. And here's the hook that grabbed me. His cover for the assignment, only the biggest, the most infamous starship race in the galaxy. And look at that artwork. Holy mackerel.
That is beautiful.
Mark Brooks.
Wow.
That is
That looks-
brilliant.
Yeah, that's woof.
And first issue, of course, is half off at DCBS, $1.99.
Marvel, again, it is knocking out of the park with their Star Wars adaptations. I wanted to jump back for a moment before we return to Star Wars, again, because we're going to be doing this as a book of the month shortly. Or, I'm sorry, off the rack pick. The new Black Panther series, and many listeners know, how much that character means to me, but the creative team they have on this is so exciting. The magnificent writer, I'm going to probably mispronounce his name, I apologize. Ta-Nehisi Coates, is that it, Murd?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, and Brian Stelfreeze is an artist I really admire.
Oh, my God. He's just... when he's a regular setup at Heroes Con, and people flocked him just to watch him work. So many artists. He's one of the... From my observations, he is so well respected by all the other artists that he's just his work just stands by itself. But to see the respect he gains from his colleagues is just wonderful to see.
Well, it's well earned. I mean,
Absolutely, yes.
I was reading the Daymen series he did, which we talked about on the air in previous episodes. I was floored by that, and just looking at the artwork for this, I mean, this looks and the premise that T'Challa is basically dealing with a revolution in his country, and it seems like they're going to be addressing, should a modern technologically advanced society need a monarch, which I think is a fascinating spin on the whole Black Panther concept. So. We'll be reviewing issue 1, which actually comes out. I'm sorry, it comes out tomorrow. Now that I think about it,
As it's being recorded, yes.
yeah. So, which will be April 6th. So, very excited about that. Other thing I want to say about Star Wars was, Pants. If you look at the flag title issue by Jason Aaron, another Obi-Wan story, which have been wonderful. I think you've been reading these, Murd, haven't you?
Oh, yes, they've been outstanding.
Yeah, where he periodically returns to Obi-Wan and his years in exile in Tatooine, all of which have been great. And it looks like they're returning to that storyline again, which I'm really looking forward to that.
Revealing that he had an encounter with a new villain, the villainous Wookiee Black Krrsantan.
Yes, who we've seen before. Also, Pants, I think you find this interesting. On page 99, the 3 for $3 Timely Comics format.
Yes.
It's very interesting where Marvel's packaging the first 3 issues of some of their current series. I think that's a great idea for people to try. Excellent idea.
Yeah.
Because, floppies, especially recent ones, are pricey, so any way they can get people into a title in a more cost-efficient way, I'm all for that.
But yeah, those Timely Comics are 40%. It's $1.80 for the 3 comics. So it's like, oh, man.
It's great.
It is great.
Excuse me.
Certainly.
Before we jump to the trades,
Yes.
There's one floppy I'd like to spotlight here. I would like all
Please.
fans of Nick Spencer's Superior Foes of Spider-Man series to follow me back to page 43. He's been, I've said before that one series I regret not following more closely because of the $3.99 price tag. I can only buy so many $4 titles in a month. But The Astonishing Ant-Man by Nick Spencer. with art by Ramon Rosanas. Spencer also wrote Superior Foes of Spider-Man, of course. And it's been Ant-Man. He's formed his own security consultant firm. And the costumed villain, the Grizzly, has been his sidekick, his supporting cast member, which has been great. And in this issue, number 9, it's Ant-Man's 11 to pull
I
off
love the cover.
Yeah, it's pretty great, isn't it? And stop a mastermind criminal, Scott has to pull together a new gang of, yeah, you guessed it, criminals. It's a vicious cycle. And that cover that Chris just mentioned shows from the waist down approximately all the Marvel Universe bad guys that Ant-Man recruits, including apparently the female Beetle, as seen in the Superior
I was
Foes
going to say, let's call them out. Looks like Whirlwind is there.
That'd be the Grizzly behind him, I think.
Grizzly. Is that with the gun? Is that not Fixer?
I'm not even going to hazard a guess, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. And the guy with the top hat? And the rabbit coming out of it?
Trying to think who in the Marvel Universe patterns himself after stage magic. There are a few options in the DC Universe, but
it's not the Ringmaster because there's no circle on the top hat.
Right, the Nullitron isn't there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Plus, the character is almost looks like he's an albino, like a very pale skin. Interesting. Yeah, that guy's a damn good writer.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed that sort of picaresque crime fiction vibe that Nick Spencer brought to the Superior Foes, maybe try this arc of Ant-Man.
I'm into trades unless anybody has anything else you want to talk about with floppies.
Nope, go right ahead.
All right.
As always, Marvel often puts out some really fun collections. Well, I guess it depends on your definition of fun. On page 119, I had to mention Spider-Man the Clone Saga, Omnibus Volume 1. And I mean this with sort of, in a way, affection. This is just a storyline that just will not die. It keeps coming back in different formats, and I was not particularly a fan of it, but you can't deny its importance in the history of Spider-Man. To me, a lot of this is a train wreck, but historically, again, it's significant. So if you've never read the story, I wouldn't recommend spending $125 on it because most of it can be found in 50-cent bins. But it definitely has a key place in Spider-Man's history. This was a good story. I only read the main miniseries, but The War of Kings on page 120. Are they reprinting the main miniseries here or not? Looks like they may not be, actually. Yes, they are. War of Kings 1 through 6. This is a battle between the Inhumans and the Shi'ar. Great cosmic conflict. Grand space operatic style. Really enjoyed this story. At least the main miniseries. I didn't read all the peripheral stuff, but it's all there. Also on page 120, they're reprinting Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 2, continuing the Claremont Byrne era, and then the end of that era, and then Claremont moving on with other artists. Again, if you're an X-Men fan, these are essential stories. These are wonderful formats, again, if you have the cash. And on page 121, this is fun. Marvel Masterworks The Black Panther Volume 2 hardcover. The Marvel Masterworks Black Panther Volume 1 reprints the classic Don McGregor, Rich Buckler, Billy Graham Jungle Action stories, which we'll be talking about later on this month in our Black Panther Spotlight. This collects the trippy, fun as hell, far out, groovy Kirby. Murd has a huge grin on his face.
King
Kirby
Solomon's Frog.
Oh yes, this is Kirby just doing whatever the hell he wants, and if you read these stories, forget about continuity. Just enjoy them for what they are. It's a wild ride, and it's just great Kirby Bronze Age, later Bronze Age. What's fun is that a lot of the concepts in this, when we talk about the Christopher Priest run, Priest actually makes these concepts work in continuity and brings them into the Priest story, which is brilliant, and we'll talk about that in the Spotlight. So, on page 131, The Vision Volume 1. Pants, I have these books set aside for you, and I will bring them to you when I'm in the studio later in the month.
Excellent.
God, the series is phenomenal. It's blows me away every issue so far. Just such a fascinating and in some ways, very disturbing take on the Vision. Essential reading.
Okay, here's something for Danny and other fans of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. On page 134, we've got The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and the Great Lakes Avengers, which is a trade paperback of pretty much every appearance of Squirrel Girl from the past 20 or so years, apparently. Her first appearance is in here from 1990, written by Will Murray, art by Steve Ditko, and also just some incidental appearances of hers from here and there. Her involvement with the JL, the Great Lakes Avengers, Great Lakes X-Men, whatever they're calling themselves this week, as written by Dan Slott. So if you're curious as to the history of Squirrel Girl, and it's not that extensive, I can easily believe the whole thing fits into one trade paperback. This is the place to go. $29.99.
Mert, on page 139, I mean, we got a whole host of again, these are reoffer, but all the Thanos graphic novels that Starlin has done recently, and the Infinity Entity trade paperback, collecting Infinity Entity 1 through 4 and Thanos Annual 1. So,
which we'll be saying more about in a near future episode.
We sure will. I just want to comment on the glory on page 144 and 145. You want to read some of the if you look, just everything else we've been talking about, set that aside. You want to read some of the best comics in the history of Marvel? It's on page 144 and 145. You have Miller's complete run on Daredevil, including The Man Without Fear and Daredevil Born Again, which, Pants, I think it's safe to say, I'm going to make a strong guess it's going to be the next season of Daredevil. Especially think about the way the show ends.
Oh, yes! Oh, the light bulb just went on. Ding! Oh,
and think about, without spoiling anything for Merd,
thank you.
Think about when when Fisk asked for certain information. Next page, the whole Alias collection. And I just finished that show this past week as well. By the way, I think it's interesting. We passed over this earlier in the book. They're having Patsy Walker team up with Jessica Jones.
Yes.
In the comic book too. This series, I think, is one of Bendis' greatest works. And I can't compliment the show enough for capturing the essence of it. I thought so effectively. So, and then on page 146, this is a good bang for your buck. $40, but you get the first. What is it? Let's see.
21.
The first 21 issues of the Silver Age Daredevil.
Yep.
I like Marvel's Epic Collections. They're color, but they put a lot of content in these volumes, so they're a good buy. The next page, they're giving the Thunderbolts their due, including Hawkeye's era in the book, which is great.
Very glad to see it.
Yep.
Fun thing is, though, they're collecting two different eras of the same ongoing series in two different trades in the same month. It's a little odd, rather than just doing it in strict chronological order, but however they feel they need to do it.
I'm good with Marvel. How about you guys?
Yeah. On to the rest of the book.
The rest of the book.
Now, unfortunately, I have to leave in about 10 minutes, but I'll comment on a couple things. As we
absolutely. Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
I wanted to comment, and Pants, this is dear to your heart, on page 186, the final trade for Rachel Rising.
Yes.
And that's a book I love, but I fell way behind on it, so I have to finish it in trade, essentially. So I'm looking forward to that coming out, because I've read everything Terry Moore has done, but I fell behind in this book. And I think, for me, Rachel Rising really captures just what a master he is. He can basically do anything, any genre. Go from Strangers in Paradise to Echo to this, and they're all compelling and they're all completely different.
Yep.
And I mean, Rachel Rising, I remember when I had Ryan read it for the first time, and he was like, God, this is creepy.
It sure is.
It's fantastic.
Yep.
So that's something I also wanted to point out. And again, I'm jumping ahead. I apologize.
Go right ahead.
Jump wherever you need to, Chris.
But the James Bond comic that who's doing that?
Dynamite?
It's Dynamite, yes. That's been outstanding. That's Warren Ellis. And if you want, just balls to the wall, just brutal James Bond, read this book, because it pulls no punches and just the brutality of what he has to do, what his work entails. But it still has the suave and the charm, but it doesn't pull punches on just the sordid world he has to travel through. Highest recommendation. And two other D books that jumped out at me. The Shadow, The Death of Margot Lane on page 258. We should make Matt aware of this. Matt Wagner, I'm a big fan of. I loved he wrote The Shadow versus Grendel in Shadow Year 1, which I thought was tremendous. And this is him writing and illustrating the book, and apparently his son is doing the coloring. Now, Murda, you expressed some understandable reservations about this when we were talking about it.
Yeah, the fact that this miniseries goes out of its way to advertise the fact that it will purportedly feature the death of a prominent female character, easily the most important female supporting character in the Shadows world. I don't know in this. I don't think that was the right thing to stress about this particular miniseries. In this day and age of girls in refrigerators, as we keep coming back to, the phrase popularized by Gail Simone, it smacks a bit of misogyny, to be honest. I mean, I haven't read the story. I don't know what he has in mind for it, but it raises an eyebrow with me, at least.
Well, here's what we'll do. I'm going to read it. I'll let you know, and I will let you know if it confirms your fears or not. But based on my love of Wagner and what he did with the Shadow previously, this is a book I'm very much looking forward to giving a try, and I'll talk about it when we do our little addendums at the end of an off the rack. The next page.
Well, and the first issue is half off DCBS.
Thanks, Pantaloons.
You're welcome.
And page 260. I'm always a big fan of Andy Diggle, his work on the modern incarnation of the Losers, and then of course his work on Thief of Thieves. Here he's doing a book called Control. Detective Sergeant Kate Burnham isn't making any friends in the Washington, D.C. Police Department. That makes her the perfect scapegoat when a routine homicide investigation threatens to blow open a criminal conspiracy that reaches the upper echelons of the D.C. power elite. I love political intrigue. I love stories of police corruption and, just having to navigate insidious bureaucracy. This is a book I'm very much looking forward to trying.
Half off.
And it's Andrea Moody again doing the art from Rebels. So, great. Only thing I wanted to comment on, gentlemen, then I'll leave the rest of it in your more than capable hands. A couple things. One, there's a new Overstreet in here, which is always exciting.
Yes. I always get the hard covers just because of that. They last longer than the soft covers. But I always get that just for reference because I'm awful with what prices go for books and so forth. And, of course, as we mentioned, there is the grading guide in there, if you will. And there's always excellent articles in there as well.
Oh, look. I couldn't do a lot of my work as a comic retailer without the Overstreet. It is the indispensable tool. If you're dealing with any kind of back issue, and you're right, Pants has great market reports in it. I mean, it's been going strong since 1970. It's an institution.
Yep.
You should accept no substitutes when it comes to a pricing guide and a grading guide for the comic book medium. And when we do our later in the month, we're going to do our grading video. I mean, everything I'm going to be learning, talking about I learned either from hands-on experience or from the Overstreet. So it's indispensable. I'm looking also at Tomorrow's on page 370. Again, I'm jumping ahead. Once again, this company never fails to excite with its offerings. You have back issue 90 looking at 80s ladies, Elektra, Dazzler, Monica Rambeau, Lady Quark, Wonder Woman. I mean, great. Alter Ego 141. The issue devoted to Rich Buckler, thrilling. Jack Kirby Collector 68, a newly discovered Kirby illustration of Doctor Doom, inked by Paul Chadwick. I mean, these are all indispensable publications that just so thoroughly celebrate the history of the American comic book medium. Absolutely indispensable publications, which I encourage everyone to give a try. And I wanted to jump ahead. I always check the T-shirt section, and most months nothing jumps out at me, but this month a couple things did. And on one of these I want to speak on behalf of Shane. Just jump past the T-shirts.
I see which one you're talking about. 438?
Look at that Starman shirt. First of all, it's got the Golden Age Sandman, Jack Knight, and the Shade. I am getting that shirt. I'm going to wear it until it's just destroyed by my washing machine over the years. And then above that, a wonderful retro New Teen Titan shirt.
Yep.
Of the Wolfman Perez incarnation. These are great shirts. There's also on page 436 a great Sergeant Rock T-shirt with a Bronze Age cover there.
Yeah.
Some really cool T-shirts. If you're a Doctor Who fan, I think you'd like that red, green, and blue one pants that they have there on page 437.
Ooh, it's in 3D.
Yep. So a lot of great stuff here. Definitely a couple of things I'm going to pick up. So, brothers, I apologize that I must depart.
Parting in such sweet sorrow.
Indeed, I have family obligations to address. Again, I leave the rest of this in your more than capable hands.
Well, we're grateful for the time and attention you've given us so far this evening, Chris.
Honored, my friends, honored. Thank you, brothers, and I would remind everybody again, read Saga. All righty. Good night, gentlemen.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Adieu.
Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
All right. All right, so Murray, you went up to the task for going through the back of the book here.
You know I am.
All right. Well, why don't you start as I sort of page ahead here, if you
All
will.
right, then I'll page backwards. I believe the first thing I had in mind to mention was underneath the aegis of Action Lab Entertainment,
Aha!
continuing to celebrate their 5th anniversary. And there's a new all-ages series coming out from them in the month of June called Ghoul Scouts, and it's written by our old friend Steve Bryant.
Excellent.
Yep, he's not providing the illustrations here, which is kind of a shame because Steve's an excellent artist. He's an artist of the Dave Stevens pulp-inspired school.
Yes.
His Athena Voltaire was an early CGS favorite. But he is at least writing the first issue of Ghoul Scouts, which is about a bunch of campers who go up against the supernatural. It's rated E for everyone. It's kid-friendly.
And the first issue is half off at DCBS, only $1.99.
Outstanding. Something else that was addressed in earlier episodes of CGS that is making its return through Action Lab is on page 190, Superhuman Resources #1. It's about the blundering employees, low-level employees of the support staff of a major superhero team. It's called Superhuman Resources. The original writer is on hand. The original artist is contributing a cover to the first issue, at least. Somebody else is doing the interiors, I noticed. Armando Zunker is the name of the new artist. Justin Bleep was the original. But yeah, that was quite funny. I think the first volume of that came out, 8 years ago? Something like that?
Well, in episode 546 from November of 2008, we took a look at Superhuman Resources from Ape Entertainment.
All right. See, so my guess was right, though. It was 8 years ago.
Yep. And this first issue is half off DCBS at $1.99.
And hey, it's certified cool by Diamond. Oh, and at the top of that page, 190, there's a trade paperback of the to be recently concluded at the time covered by this preview's catalog, crossover event within Action Labs, the Actionverse event, in which a bad guy named Cascade travels between the alternate realities of several different Action Lab Entertainment characters, like Jamal Eigel's Molly Danger and Sean Gabarine's Fraction and Fracture and so on. So that whole story is collected in one volume coming out, or solicited for June. We've also got an Action Frankenstein story in Bolts #1 on page 191, also from Action Lab. All right, page 202, coming out through Albatross Funny Books, formerly known as Exploding Albatross Funny Books.
Okay.
I think Eric Powell may have dropped the exploding when he realized just Albatross would put him further to the front of the catalog. But a new series called Hillbilly #1, written and illustrated by Eric Powell of The Goon from Dark Horse. And it's the story of an Appalachian mountain man who wanders around fighting bears and witches and demons and becoming a kind of a folk legend in his own right. And that seems like the kind of story that Eric Powell's storytelling style would suit very well. Probably not quite as much in a humorous vein as The Goon, from indications I see here, but still well worth a read. I think I'll probably try the first issue.
And if you do, it's 45% off at DCBS, only $2.19.
Very handy with those bargains.
I'm trying here.
Doing a fine job. This is what we miss about you, Brian.
Oh, stop it.
Let's see, on page 206, American Mythology is still giving us some original Pink Panther comic stories, sometimes featuring the Aardvark and the Ant, sometimes featuring the Inspector, and it appears the second issue has the Inspector in it.
Oh.
And on the facing page, more original Three Stooges comics. The Three Stooges giant-sized Stoogapalooza. Giant size meaning 40 pages in this case. Page 228 from Bongo/United Plankton Pictures. SpongeBob Comics. This is the 4th edition of the SpongeBob Comics Annual Giant Swimtacular, which they always do get in some greats of the comic industry to contribute work. They've had Ramona Fradon do original Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy stories in the past. This time they got Neil Adams. There's actually Neil Adams artwork in
How
this
about
SpongeBob comic. But it's got SpongeBob and Patrick and also his heroes Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. And, other SpongeBob characters reinterpreted superheroically. I always buy this issue every year, and it's great fun. It harkens back to the Silver Age summer spectacular 80-page giants of yore.
And a cover by Jerry Ordway.
Ain't that something?
Oh, my God. 35% off a DC base, only $3.24.
Sold.
Oh, man. Ugh, good stuff. Ooh.
It looks like issue number 57 is kind of the Frank Miller Sin City style in that it's a 3-color issue, all black, white, and yellow. Nautical noir, they call it. Yeah, they do some pretty imaginative things with that SpongeBob series. Bringing us into Boom Studios. Pretty interesting intercompany crossover here.
Yeah.
Page 234. This is the Lumberjanes and Gotham Academy crossover. This is the Lumberjanes. This is 2 series that I have yet to try, either one of them. But
okay.
I know that Lumberjanes comes highly recommended by Danielle Corsetto, and Eric Nolan Wethington is a big fan of it as well. And here they're crossing over with the youngsters from the Gotham Academy series at DC. And it's written by China Cluxton Flores of Blue Monday. It's a 6-issue miniseries in which these 2 casts of characters collide.
And the main cover is half off a DC best, only $1.99.
$1.99. Looking fine. A new project from fan favorite writer Charles Soule on page 236. It's a miniseries called Strange Attractors. And it's about strange, problems of physics and metaphysics. The plot is not that easy to summarize from what we're given here, but it's Charles Soule, so if that means something to you, you should probably at least give that miniseries a look. And I know that you Charles Soule fans are out there. Not that much new going on in the licensed side of Boom Studios. There is a new series based on the Cartoon Network series Clarence. That's on page 241. Let's see. Here we go. Under Chapter House Comics, pages 251 and 252. They're a comer. They're an up-and-comer. They're a Canadian-based publisher. I've been reading and enjoying The Pitiful Human Lizard from them on a more or less monthly basis. And I'd like to give a shout-out this month to on page 252, True Patriot, Volume 2. Which is
yes.
a hardcover collection. Do you happen to have in your possession a copy of the original True Patriot?
I'm not exactly sure if we got that when we were up there.
I'd be surprised if you didn't, because a couple of our friends did contribute to that. Jack Brilio, most notably. But it's a collection of original superhero comics with a decidedly Canadian flavor.
Yes.
And this second volume contains work from creators including Jay Torres, Jay Bone, Jay Stevens of Jetcat, the aforementioned Jack Brilio, Ramon Perez of Hawkeye, and the Jim Henson A Tale of Sand, and Tom Fowler.
Yep.
It's an old friend of ours who's turned in some beautiful work in the past. And there was Jeff Lemire. Some of you may have heard of.
that guy.
Named Jeff Lemire, yeah. So, yes, some original Canadian superhero comics, Heroes of the Great White North. I have a copy of the first volume. And I'm kind of curious as to what's going to happen with Jack Brilio's characters in that, because it was like a father and daughter superhero team, and the sort of a strained relationship that they had. So I'd like to see where that relationship progresses to. Hopefully, he's talking about the same characters in Volume 2 of True Patriot. And under Dynamite, we've got that the Shadow Death of Margot Lane that Chris spotlighted. I do hope that Matt Wagner has. I want to have faith in him that this is more than just killing another female character for shock value. I would like to be proven wrong about that, but we'll just see. And I'll just let Chris be my Matt Wagner litmus test, as he was with the Spirit series as well. Kevin Smith fans should probably look at page 268, because Dynamite is publishing some comics written by Kevin Smith featuring the Yoga Hosers, the 2 young ladies, one of whom was played by his own daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, as seen in the horror comedy movie Tusk, which I stayed far away from because it involves a human being surgically transformed into an animal mutant, and that's the kind of thing that freaks me right the heck out.
Oh, boy, okay.
So, yeah, I was never going to see Tusk, but apparently these are 2 characters from the comedy part of that comedy horror film, and they're having their own adventures, again, north of the border. This seems to be Canadian Heritage Month. in previews. But it's Kevin Smith written comics, art by Jeff and Liam Quigley, and starring a character played by Kevin Smith's own daughter. Let's see, Joe Books. They're still doing some Disney licensed things. I mentioned a little while ago that they've revived the Darkwing Duck series that ran from Boom Studios a few years ago. And this month there's a Disney Pixar Finding Dory comic on offer. I don't know if it's a miniseries. It's apparently it's all new stories, so it's not just an adaptation of the film.
Oh, okay.
So that's worth a look, I would say. That there is a Cinestory trade paperback, which is usually just produced directly from film cells.
Okay.
So that'll be more likely to be the movie adaptation. But Finding Dory is apparently going to be some original Finding Nemo and Dory type content. So that's probably worth a look. And there's a comics adaptation. It's not even described as a Cinestory, so maybe it's original art as opposed to just shot from the animation cells. On page 308, a Zootopia graphic novel. I've heard lots of good things about that.
Have you seen a movie yet?
I haven't. My parents did.
Really?
I have not seen it, but my parents have.
I know you wanted to go see it.
Yeah, I may actually go this week. It's still in theaters. There's still late showings, but it's got like a 99% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's kind of rare.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I've heard good things from word of mouth, too. It's apparently it's very accessible for adults, possibly even more entertaining for adults than kids. So I'm game to see it, and if you've seen it and would like to read some comics on the same subject, well, there's a $9.99 graphic novel there on page 308 from Joe Books. Now, here's something you might be interested in, Brian.
Yes.
On page 318, under Legendary Comics, this is a graphic novel called Axiom. It's written by Mark Waid.
What?
And with art by Ed Benes.
Good Lord. Do tell.
It really buried the lead on that one.
Sure.
So it's something not too dissimilar to what was it called? I can't believe I can't think of it. It's that series that Mark Waid did for Boom a few years ago about a Superman-type character who went nuts.
Irredeemable?
There it goes.
Yeah.
All I was coming up with was the sequel, Insufferable. But
right.
You're right. It is irredeemable. Thank you. It's about a Superman-type character who descends from the skies and begins fixing all the world's problems. But then a series of tragic events reveals another side of this Axiom character, and it's up to a Defense Department analyst armed with only scientific knowledge and courageous spirit to take on the turned hero in a fight for mankind's survival.
And I see it's been resolicited, so I must have missed the original solicit as well. My goodness. Well, I just wrote that down, sir.
Yep, I don't remember it either, honestly, from whenever it was solicited the first time. So got it on the second time around. It's always a second chance.
Well, thank goodness. Yeah, I will have to give that a shot then, because it looks like it's 30% off, $13.99. I like Mark Waid. I like Ed Benes. Mm-hmm. Two great tastes that go great together. I don't know. We'll see.
And then from Lion Forge on page 319, we've got a horror story from the mind of Cullen Bunn in Night Trap #1. And something from Fabian Nicieza, whose byline we don't see in comics as much these days as I'd like. It appears to be the story of a professional wrestler, so the subject matter doesn't interest me so much, but I'm glad to see that Fabian Nicieza is getting some work. Chavo Guerrero in Warrior's Creed.
Are we at Titan Comics yet?
We are.
Oh, Titan Comics. All right. Well, the first thing that jumped out to me is actually the first thing they have listed, Sherlock, A Study in Pink, #1. I think I might give this a shot. Oversized issues. I think it's going to be, what did I see here? I think it's like 7.
Mm-hmm. I think that is the number I remember seeing. So,
right.
Yeah.
And let's see, the first issue here through DCBS, I just had it up, is 45% off, $2.74, because I haven't read a whole lot of manga. We chose a few things, book of the month in the past. We had Monster, which I really loved, and I did Akira. I might give it a shot. I love the series Sherlock. Looks pretty good. Give that a shot.
Yeah, by all means.
And, of course, they have all the Doctor Who books here from Titan. It actually looks like July 9th is Doctor Who Comics Day. There's going to be also a special event comic next month. But my biggest thing with going through the Titan listings is trying to figure out which cover to pick for, because there's like about 4 or sometimes 5 covers for each issue. I just want to read the darn book, but I try to pick out one that appeals to me the most. Sometimes it's a photo cover, sometimes it's an art cover, you know. Just depends on the mood I'm feeling in right now. But there's a real cool variant cover for, let's see, the 10th Doctor, Year 2, number 12, on page 4. What page is this? Where's the page numbers? My goodness. Well, it's in a Doctor Who section.
Yeah, the Titan section is always weird because there's all these... It's like everything is solicited twice.
Right.
Yeah, like Titan pays for several pages of ads, basically, and then the official preview solicitation copy appears on pages after that.
It's a variant cover based off of the Beatles' Red album cover with the 4 Doctors, 4 looking down from that balcony. Oh, I might have to go with that one for that issue there.
For the cover alone.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. They did a recent. They've been a lot of album cover homages they've done over the last couple of months. Pretty good stuff. Anything else in the back of the book?
Having been talking of Finding Dory, I noticed that Tokyo Pop is coming out with a manga adaptation of Finding Nemo, the original film. Check that out on pages 368 and 369. Chris has already covered the offerings from Tomorrow's this month. Let's see, anything new from Valiant? Looks like there's a jumping on point to Jeff Lemire's Bloodshot series with issue number 14. That's described on pages 378 and 9. The 4001 AD story is continuing. The first issue of that story will be an off-the-rack pick for the month of May. Yeah, I think that'll do it for me for the comics section anyway. I believe there was one book that I wanted to give a quick nod to, and that was page 409. It's a book entitled Last Night a Superhero Saved My Life, and it seems to be a collection of essays, like first-person accounts from various well-known writers in both comics and beyond about what superheroes have meant to them and specific occasions in some cases in which superhero comics and their love of them got them through some difficult times. And so the headliner there is Neil Gaiman. He contributes an essay. But we've also got Jodi Picoult, a novelist and one-time Wonder Woman writer. Christopher Golden is in there. Brad Meltzer is in there. Joe R. Lansdale, Western writer who's written a couple of Jonah Hex stories, and others.
And that is 30% off cover price at $18.19. And also looks on the next, actually right next to it, Otto Binder, The Life and Work of a Comic Book and Science Fiction Visionary softcover.
The man who wrote more Captain Marvel stories than anyone else, and is also possibly a co-creator of the Bizarro character. Yeah, historical records are a little indefinite on that, but I think he was probably involved in creating my favorite character in all of comics.
I did not know that. Weird, wild stuff.
Weird, wild indeed. And it's written by Bill Shelley, one of the giants of early comics fandom.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's... I'm glad you noticed that, Brian. I just
I was right next to it. I couldn't help but notice it.
Yeah, I was too busy reading the Superhero Save My Life thing. I overlooked it, but I've remedied that now. I've made a mark. That's why we wait until after we're done recording these things to place our own DCBS orders.
Well, usually I'm already ordered by now, but I wanted to wait to hear some other suggestions. Like that Axiom, I'm probably going to add there as well.
See, that's why. That's why. We're looking out for each other. We've got each other's backs.
You're making me spend more money.
And, I rarely have anything to say about all the merchandise towards the back. But Chris did point out a couple of quality T-shirts there. I agree that the Starman one is worth buying, and I can see Peter Rios wearing that new Teen Titans one. I can picture it right now.
All right. Is there anything else, or that's going to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up.
Okay.
We will, of course, review our off-the-rack picks for the month of June. From DC, that'll be the DC Rebirth 80-page special. From Marvel, it'll be Civil War 2 miniseries number 1. And independent from IDW, Tales of the Dark Side number 1.
Excellent. All right. Well, if you lasted us with this long, here's a little treat for you.
Finish line was in sight. You had to throw a rock under my feet.
You can't escape the Muddle the Murd. The return of Muddle the Murd. All right. Let's just jump right into it.
Let's do.
This Muddle the Murd is brought to us by Mr. Chuck Coletta.
Wow.
Well, it's from July of 2015, so it's been in the queue for quite some time.
Yeah, my old faculty friend, but I know that he is still listening.
He goes, "Hi, CGS crew. Here's another attempt at muddling Adam's monumental memory. I don't expect to best him, but here goes nothing. And Chuck, just so you know, you are playing for a pair of sketches by Craig Rousseau of Superman and Batman.
Oh, yes, and I've seen some of the odds and ends that Chuck has around his office at Bowling Green, or at least that he did 11 years ago. And so he has a lot of DC Comics memorabilia, so I think he'd be happy to have those drawings.
All right, question number 1, DC Comics pre-1970. In Superboy 85, the time-traveling teen hero coincidentally meets an adult Lex Luthor, who has built a time machine to escape the adult Man of Steel, at a fateful moment in American history. During the story, Luthor employs red kryptonite to immobilize Superboy into a statue. This plot inadvertently leads to whose death?
Wow. Well, this is once again going to be just a shot in the dark, but I'm not going to stop. Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln!
Wow!
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Shot in the dark in Ford's Theater.
How the hell did you figure that?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm shouting again, but you stunned me yet again. Answer is President Abraham Lincoln.
Nabu the Wise smiles down on me.
Superboy had traveled to the past to prevent Lincoln's assassination. However, Luthor's scheming gives John Wilkes Booth the opportunity to kill Lincoln. Upon learning the result of his villainy, Luthor exclaims, "Why did fate choose me to prevent Superboy from saving the life of Lincoln, a great man? I'm responsible for many crimes, but this is the worst of all. Lincoln's blood is on my hands. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's incredible.
I don't know how I did it, but I'm glad I done did it.
I mean, of all the things to choose from, what in that question made you think of Abraham Lincoln?
It's a famous death in American history.
Oh, my God. Well, anyway, let's continue if we've all got ourselves under control here.
I need to know who wrote that story now, though. It sounds, since Luthor is so sympathetic and he's actually penitent for having done this, it sounds like it might have been an Elliot S. Magan story. But go ahead and
Well,
read
it's
the
from
next.
1960. Was he around in 1960?
He definitely was not.
Well, you can go through Comic Book DB if you like.
That's exactly what I'm going to do, but you go ahead and read the next question
Okay,
while
question
I do that.
2, Marvel Comics, 1970 to 2000. In the Marvel-published Hanna-Barbera's Scooby-Doo number 2, there's a story titled The Ghostly Governor, in which this dead American apparently rises from the grave to run for governor. Name the candidate.
Wow. Okay, is this is sometime between 1970
This is in
and 2000?
1977.
Okay.
It says, fortunately, an official from this anonymous verifies that according to the election laws, a candidate need not be alive to run for office.
All right, so a famous dead American who's running for the office of governor.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I don't think I'm going to get two epic yanks like that in one packet of questions, but Fiorello LaGuardia.
Abraham Lincoln.
Darn these themes.
Actually, the candidate is revealed to be a mob-controlled Lincoln impersonator. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, question 3, independent publishers, post-2000. In the 2011 Time Lincoln series from Antarctic Press, God bless Chuck and his theme here. I didn't want to give it away ahead of time. The Great Emancipator is taken out of time on the night of his assassination in order to save all of history, which is being threatened by the tyrant of time. Name the 20th century international/historical figure who is Lincoln's arch enemy.
Arch enemy. Oh, shoot. You know, I'm sure I have this Time Lincoln issue.
I'm pretty sure I have it as
from
well.
Antarctic. I want to say that it's Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, you'd be wrong.
Darn.
Answer, Joseph Stalin, who stole Rasputin's time travel powers. It says here, think Abe Lincoln as Doctor Who. Lincoln assembles a team including Thomas Edison, Amelia Earhart, Ben Franklin, George Washington Carver, and Albert Einstein. Now I got to find my issue and read it. That sounds pretty freaking cool. I might have actually read that, but I can't remember. It's 5 years ago.
Yeah. And, Stalin makes a much better bad guy than Teddy Roosevelt anyway. Oh, by the way, that issue of Superboy with the time-traveling Luthor was written by Jerry Siegel.
Oh, excellent. Well, Chuck, thank you for your patience. First of all, it was wild.
Yeah.
That was in the queue there.
Long time for not that much payoff,
But
unfortunately.
you did not muddle the murder here. And as a matter of fact, if my calculations are correct, that is the last muddle the murder we have in the queue from last year. So as you mentioned previously, it's open season on muddling the murder.
Mm-hmm. Unless you want this to be a very short comeback for the segment, please pitch in and send some more questions. Because remember, there need to be 3 questions, one about Marvel, one about DC, and one about some third publisher. And in case you're wondering, the publishers whose character catalogs DC eventually purchased do count as a third publisher. So a Captain Atom question from the 60s would count as Charlton Independent, for example, but a Captain Atom question from the 90s would be a DC question. And they also must break down by time period, one question about pre-1970, one question about 1970 to 2000 inclusive, and one question about comics after the year 2000. So send in 3 questions that meet those guidelines and stump me with them, muddle me, as it were, and you may just find yourself the winner of a prize.
And, of course, mail them to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com.
Yep, put Muddle the Murd in the subject line, and don't forget to include the answers to your 3 questions. Yes. Otherwise, if you muddle me, how will we ever know?
Yes. Well, that was an incredible segment. Abraham Lincoln, how in God's name did you pull that out of your...
stovepipe hat. It's the first historically significant American death that I could think of.
Wow, you never cease to amaze me. Good guy. Well, now that will officially wrap it up for us here. So once again...
Thank you very much, Chuck, for sending that in.
Yeah, once again, this episode was brought to you by Discounts Comic Book Service. Go to dcbservice.com for all of your pre-ordering needs.
Okay, if you would like to send us an email, our address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. That's where you send your Muddle the Merds as well. If you'd like to leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Follow us on Twitter. We're at Comic Geek Speak. Visit our Facebook page. Like us. Leave us a comment. Also, go to the comicforums.vanillaforums.com to participate in one of the best little comic book and podcast discussion communities on the internet. You can leave your feedback to this episode and to many other episodes as well, and join in discussion threads on various topics. We'd like to give a special thank you to anyone who's donated money to the show in the past. We really appreciate it. Couldn't do the show without you. And we are, as always, uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
You got it on Wednesday, and it was like about it going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything the geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read. And comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is Comic Geek Speak.
Let's see. This will all be edited out.
Of course. But it'll be on the bonus content. Us turning pages.
Yep. Riveting.